Hello, I hope you're sitting comfortably because I'd like to tell you a story of high adventure, how 9 members of the Wadhurst Rotary Club took to the water in 2010. I'd like to tell you of the courage and endurance of sailing the southern oceans and of the sublime pleasure of setting sail from Wellington's spectacular harbour. But none of our intrepid mariners were there. No, we took to the water in 2 narrow boats at Stoke Prior near Bromsgrove, several miles away from the sea. On Violet, the skipper was none other than Martin Causer, who was the expedition leader. There were 2 quartermasters, Chris Waits in charge of food and Brian Rosevere in charge of booze. And last but not least, the cabin boy, President Godfrey Wood. And on Shelley, the skipper was Arthur Dewar. The 2 quartermasters were David Goldsmith and Brian Tuck, responsible for food and liquid refreshment respectively. The cabin boy was John Gordon, and finally, as chief photographer and general dog's body, yours truly. I was wondering if there were any parallels with those sailing the southern oceans and our trip. And by stretching my imagination a great deal, I came up with 3. The boats were of a similar length. We went up and down in the locks, they went up and down. They rounded Cape Horn, while we left the calm and tranquillity of the Worcester and Birmingham Canal to enter the raging torrent of the River Severn. Our trip started on Saturday the 4th of September, a day that started like any other with me taking Janet her morning coffee, to be confronted by a card. Yes, I had forgotten it was our 45th wedding anniversary, and as I was leaving at 8:30 there was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to redeem myself. Luckily daughter Claire was staying and was persuaded to buy some flowers on my behalf. 4 cars left Wadhurst at about 8:30 and we met up at midday at the Stoke Prior Marina to take possession of our vessels. After a leisurely lunch in the nearby pub and a technical briefing for the skippers, off we went. Martin had warned us that if the River Severn was in flood, we would have to turn north and head towards Birmingham. As luck would have it, there was no problem with the river, and so we headed off to Worcester. This was just as well, as a little bit of research showed that had we gone the other way, we would have had to face the tardy big flight of 36 locks in 4 miles. The first problem, however, was that the boats were facing towards Birmingham, and we were going in the opposite direction to Worcester. Our destination on the first afternoon are the moorings at Tiverton. The Worcester and Birmingham Canal is 29 miles long with 58 locks which gain 428 feet, linking the River Severn at Worcester with the Gas Street Basin in Birmingham. Like so many canal promoters, they seriously underestimated the engineering difficulties and the cost. Though the Act authorising its construction was passed in 1791, the canal was not fully completed until 1815, and the initial estimate of £180,000 had become £610,000. On a par with the Scottish Parliament building, I think. Very good, chaps. Are you concentrating?
Yes, I always look like this when I'm concentrating. Good boy, and open the gate for them.
Oh, it's very kind of you.
That's what I like, I tell you. I can look after my own gate.
There are some construction anomalies in that the original design was to take barges off the River Severn, which would have been 14 foot wide, and the Diglis locks were built accordingly. However, for economic reasons, the rest of the canal is on the 7-foot standard, with the exception of the Droitwich branch.
These what?
These paparazzi are everywhere.
Thank you.
Coming.
Okay.
What do you think of that then, John?
Interesting and different.
Perhaps a bit more training.
He didn't unseat you.
No, not this time. Because of the range of this transmitter, which covered as far as most of Northern Europe, it was used during World War II to transmit coded messages to the resistance forces in France, but now is used by the BBC for their Radio 4 long-wave transmissions, equally coded.
No, we've got no more locks.
With the opening of the Birmingham and Gloucester Railway in 1841, the decline of the commercial traffic was inevitable, although it appears that chocolate crumb was being delivered to the Cadbury factory in the early 1960s.
In water boats. He said, no, nor am I. Oh, there's a chain across. That could be tricky, couldn't it? I only just saw that.
A brand new wide-beamed barge, ready to launch and destined for the Droitwich branch.
Hello, how are you? All right?
Fine, Dave.
Now on the other page, like with Jessie Norman, remember the opera singer? She sued someone for her feelings for her, and that's right. There was one said she once got stuck in a swinging door, and this man came up and said, "Miss Norman, you should go through sideways." And she said, "Honey, I ain't got no sideways." She was totally spherical.
Pseudo.
Have you got something there? I don't know. Probably cool. Oh wow, yeah.
Opening up of the greens.
Even Brian should get through that gap. He did that again, I didn't get it.
Really commenting on the well hung.
One or two things about locks. We went through 3 different types: the narrow single boat canal lock, the double canal lock and the large river lock. The Diglis top and bottom locks take you from the River Severn up to the canal and are large enough for 2 boats, but the gates and paddles being that much larger are quite hard to operate. The river lock is much larger, and as it is operated by a lockkeeper poses us no problems. The canal locks, on the other hand, are barely a foot wider than the boats, which makes entering them a skill yet to be acquired by some. In fact, we organised a lock entering competition, but more of that later. These locks have a single gate upstream and a double gate at the other end. It is important to make sure that the correct paddles are opened or closed, otherwise the lock will either not fill or empty, and water from a section of the canal could be lost. When entering one of these locks, going downstream, it is important to keep the boat well forward to avoid catching the rudder on the sill, which could cause serious damage. With a team of people, opening and shutting the locks can be much easier by sending the advance parties to carry out the hard work. Of course, the experienced boater will have his collapsible bike and ensure that the novice opens his paddle first. This is quite hard due to the water pressure, but as the water equalises, the experienced boater jumps into action.
Oh yes, sorry, this should come back to you.
Spare knife anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Casper, call him.
Casper.
Oh,
Good boy.
you talented look too, don't you? Yes.
Beautiful, aren't you?
Yeah. Let's give way, guys. We're bigger than you.
After a leisurely breakfast, we left Tiverton heading for Worcester and the River Severn.
Hi Paddy, lock's just round the corner if you want to get off here.
Thank you. We passed under the M5 to enter the flight of 6 locks at Offerton, at the end of which it rained practically all the way to Worcester, and for a large part I was left in charge while Arthur, John and Brian took a much longer walk than certainly Brian anticipated. The rain saved my blushes, no filming, as when I jumped ashore to go and open a lock I fell head first into a bed of nettles. Oh well. South of Worcester, the Severn pursues an undemonstrative course. There are brief glimpses of the Malvern Hills beyond the river's high and largely uninspiring banks. But if the scenery momentarily falters, the novelty of the deep, wide water is exhilarating. Coming out of the confines of the canal allows us to unleash the pent-up energy in the engine room. Apart from Rotary Canal trips, I had only once before been on a narrowboat. It was with the family when the kids were 11 and 8 and included both my sister and Janet's sister. There were several memories that stick out. On this particular stretch of the river, which we were navigating between Upton and Stourport, we moored on the bank about here. In the morning, or to be precise at 5 in the morning, I woke up with the boat at a very odd angle. The river level had gone down some 18 inches overnight, and we were well aground. What to do? Poling off was not an option, so shake it off with the engine worked. The villagers must have loved us that Sunday morning. On the way back, Claire had found a fishing cast in some bushes, and hung it on the rail overnight. Guess what? She caught a fish, which seriously pissed off her brother, who'd been using his rod and line all week without success. So, from white swan to white line, with origins dating back to 1510. Henry Fielding, the famous dramatist and journalist, wrote of the white lion in his 1749 masterpiece The History of Tom Jones. Tom took his redeemed lady to that inn, which in their eyes presented the fairest appearance in the street, and he called the hotel a house of exceedingly good repute. Not, I must say, my recollection of the 1963 film version with Albert Finney. We are told that the Malverns, which amazingly are the highest point between the Black Mountains in Wales and the Harz Mountains in Germany, and the River Severn, were the inspiration for much of Sir Edward Elgar's music. Yesterday we had a competition to test everybody's boat handling skills. Everybody had to manoeuvre their boat into a lock, and this was the result. Based on this evidence, Martin and Arthur, who also took part, were asked to award points out of 10 for the skill displayed. All the points were then added up, multiplied by 9 and divided by 23 3/4, and this was the result. So what about that then, John?
It seemed to go reasonably well, apart from a bang on the corner, misjudging its width.
Well, what do you think of that?
I hope you appreciate it. It was the first lock I've ever done in my life. So I'm very sorry that I let the side down, but you wait to the next lock, I tell you. Won't touch the sides.
Probably not a lot when you have a debriefing, Paddy.
What do you think of that, Mr. Goldsmith?
I think that's bloody good.
Could have done better.
Why, what happened?
I hit it, like every other bugger. I don't want to be publicly humiliated.
That was remarkably good, Goddard.
I'm trying harder today.
Are you really? Think of that.
Well, in fact, that wasn't me that negotiated the look. That was Arthur Dewar wearing a Martin Coulter face mask. They're very popular, you know.
Oh.
So I could see that he had quite a strong crosswind, which would have thrown him off. But otherwise, I think he did not bad. He recovered a poor situation quite well, I thought.
So what was that then, Chris?
Oh, it was great, actually.
You understand.
Don't let me pull you off. I think that was more appropriate.
Well, we string up a bosun's chair and rig you across on it.
I don't think so.
And if you're still talking too much halfway along, we'll dunk you in it.
On our family trip we moored here near the town bridge and went to see the sights of Worcester. On our return in the dark we were aghast to find maggots crawling all over the boat, thanks to some fisherman dumping his ground bait. The final incidents on the family trip were that both kids fell off the boat. Charles just after he'd had his one and only shower, he then got hosed down. Claire fell between the boat and a quay, but a quick-thinking aunt grabbed her by a life jacket and retrieved her. There was one other incident where Janet fell in, but I'm sworn to secrecy.
Such concentration, Goddard.
Arthur led his crew to Worcester Cathedral for a cultural experience. There we learnt that the cathedral was founded in 680 by Bishop Boswell, and that the current building was constructed between 1084 and 1504. We also saw the memorial window to Sir Edward Elgar, whose Vesper Voluntaries we are listening to, played by Thomas Trotter, on the organ of Salisbury Cathedral. Oh dear. And so on towards Tiverton to meet up with the others. It started to rain again, and by the time we got to our destination we were soaked. We couldn't find the others, but by an exchange of text messages we established that they had gone a little further along. We wished them well and opened a bottle or two.
Morning, Paddy.
It wasn't on. Say good morning.
Good morning.
That's fine.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Brian.
Good.
Fish, French bread.
You've just cooked it.
I've just cooked this, yes. Cheese, pate, pork pies, pickle,
Are you doing this for everybody or just your boat?
and you can have some cake if you wish. I've got cake left over.
Ooh,
We've got lemon drizzle cake and we've got tea cake with mussel.
I shall be aboard.
So see you later.
Thank you.
I'm back. I'll walk across.
There aren't many of us, but
No.
generally speaking, we do a very good job of it.
And how's it work? You walk a length during the course of a day, do you?
It depends where we are.
Yeah.
We walk a length, and then
Yeah.
obviously some days we just do the various marinas,
Yeah.
so we go from one to the other in the vehicle.
And do you work on your own or as a pair, so does somebody pick you up at the other end?
We're paired for lone working,
Okay.
and sometimes we're on boats.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
on the River Severn,
Yeah.
the Sharpness Canal.
So you're the Sharpness, the Severn, and the
Yeah,
Birmingham
my-
Worcester, and
Yeah, my area is GNS, River Severn, up to Kings Norton on this one,
Yep.
and the Mononbreck Canal.
Okay, right. Oh, the Morning Break as well. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Sort of live more or less central for the north. So
Yeah,
I can,
right.
If needs be, I can go straight from home.
Yeah.
Usually the opposite goes to the office for us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice little retirement.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
stress.
I was thinking the same myself, actually.
Yeah, so, no.
Here we go.
I've got my passport.
Bye. Nice to see you. Cheerio.
See you at home.
Okay.
Severn.